This is part 11 of the series of tutorials for constructing our Drive app. It is also the third one in stage 4, probably or might be the last one in stage 4. In the previous part, which was part 10 and was also the second one in stage 4, hope that's not too confusing, but now we're in part 11. We added those effects, those post effects, which are really part of the global volume, but the camera knows to kind of like look through those because we checked post processing. Now, with the two effects, the game window should look something like this, and it does. And we can continue. Look at step 25. Important. In the inspector of the center eye rendering, uncheck post-processing and it should return all to normal. So the idea is that in the center eye anchor, if we uncheck post-processing, everything returns to normal. We check post-processing, it's turned on. So this is really going to be the job of the script to turn it on. Of course, initially it's off. Now here's the problem that I found. Look at the scene window. It looks like the effects are still on in the scene window, but that's very easily solvable. What I can do is go here and let's see, it's not the layers, it's toggling. Yeah, when I go to toggling this icon, I can just tell it, don't show me post-processing. So the scene window is not going to show post-processing. I don't need it to. It's only the game window that I need to show post-processing. So now if I go back to the center eye anchor and I turn it on or off, only the game does. Again, the way I turned it on or off for the scene is by telling it what I want rendered on the scene, and I just unchecked post-processing. So now we can go back and we're going to add a script to the camera because it's the camera that needs to turn on the effect, and the script is going to be called My Underwater, and I already have that script. So at this point, you probably should pause the video and create that script and attach it to the center eye anchor. If you did, and you're back. I created it separately, My Underwater, but I might as well have selected the center eye anchor and add component. Since I have it already written, I'm just going to drag it in. So My Underwater, and let's open it and see what it does. It's important that it's added to the center eye anchor because that's the one that uses or doesn't use post-processing. And initially, post-processing should be off. So what does My Underwater script say? If I'm going to look at it, it's not a long script. It uses only the Unity engine and the class, of course, My Underwater, capital M, capital U. And there's one private variable or object. Now, it has an unusually long type. Usually it's like, bool or game object or something. Now, this one has a relatively long one, which is why, I recommend typing the script before watching this part of the video. In the Unity engine, inside of it, there's a class called rendering. Inside of that, a class called universal. Inside of that, a class called universal additional camera data. And you got to type it exactly, case sensitive and everything. Now, the fact that for me it shows up with some kind of like color coding, it's just because of the settings of my own Visual Studio. On your code editor, it might or might not show color coding, as long as it's typed correctly. And of course, you'll know if you didn't type it correctly because it'll show up like an error in the in Unity in the console. So assuming you typed it correctly, so private means that it's not public, that it's not going to show up in the inspector. Then this whole thing is the type of private variable we're creating, and its name is My Camera. It has a start and it has an update. On start, it says, okay, this variable that is the type of that camera is universal additional camera data, is going to go to this, which means this object, the center eye camera, look at all of its components, find the Unity engine rendering universal additional camera data, and in other words, defines this as being the part of the camera we're going to talk about. Then, so in other words, it says, okay, what is really the part of the camera I'm about to, turn on or off? This get component, Unity engine rendering universal additional camera data. It's additional camera data because it's post-processing. Then on update, which of course is executed 72 times a second, it keeps checking again and again and again. If application data dot did hit water true. Remember, the script that's reporting that is the hit water splash, the one that we last looked at. So it changes it to did hit water true only after it actually hits the water. So if it can ask, hey, application data, is it true? Is it true? Is it true? When it finally is true, it's just going to go to my camera, which is really the rendering of my camera, saying, you know what? Out of everything you got, there's something called render post-processing. It's one little checkbox. Out of all that this component has, there's one checkbox called post-processing. And initially it's unchecked, but if it did hit the water, change it to true, and it turns on the post. So in other words, from the beginning of the scene, it's turned off, because we just turned it off, and when it hits the water, it turns on. So looking at the guide, it says that once we have this script, and it's written correctly, on the center eye camera, we should be able to play. When you fall, you should hear the splash. The camera view should change to the underwater look, and after hitting the ocean floor, after our 30-second delay, it should reload and look normal. Let's see if that all works. So right now it looks normal because post-processing is off. And when I drive off the track, it turned into the underwater look. The reason I didn't hear the sounds is because my speakers didn't wake up. So let's do it again. I should hear the splash and underwater. If you want to play around with the underwater look, then you can definitely do things like this. You can select the global volume. And for instance, if I think, first of all, let's turn it on temporarily, the center eye anchor. I'm turning it on. And maybe I think that this is not like blurry enough. So I can go to the global volume, which is where the effects are. And what makes it blurry is the depth of field. And I might go, the focus distance might, let me reduce it to the smallest possible. And maybe change it from bokeh to Gaussian. No, that's not, I don't know. If I do start and end, it doesn't really look good. I'm going back to bokeh. And I can play around with a focal length. Now that's the most it can be. Let's see if the aperture is going to make any difference. Nope, not really. In other words, if I want to play with, the way it looks, the place to play with it would be the global volume. HDR color could be lighter or darker to signify that I'm really under ocean. The important thing is, because we're almost done with this part, is that on the center eye anchor, in the beginning, post-processing is off, and it gets turned on only when I hit the water. So the splash detector tells it did hit water is true, and that turns on all of those effects. Let's see what we have left. For those of us that have access to Quest, that will be definitely a good time to test, driving a little bit on the track and then falling off, seeing if the effects look, good in the Quest. If we do, let's not forget to build the correct scene because we're on drive stage 4. I'm going to save. I'm going to go to File, Build Profiles because it still thinks that I'm trying to build stage 3. I'm going to open the scene list, add open scenes, and get rid of 3. So if I build to a quest, it'll build only 4. In any case, the way to submit this will be exactly the same as the previous 2 stages. You got 2 options. If you got access to a Quest device, capture a short video in that. What I want to see in the short video is everything that I saw in previous stages, plus I want to see the water, I want to see the new sky. I want to see that when you fall, you should hear the splash. The camera view should change to the underwater look, and after hitting the ocean floor, after 3 seconds, scene should reload. And it doesn't need to be longer than 10 or 20 seconds to demonstrate all of that. Or if you don't have access at home to a Quest device, you can capture a video of Unity on your computer showing all of the above and so on. And if you already figured out how to do it in the previous 2 stages, you just do it exactly the same. Don't forget, I need to hear the sounds of the splash and then of the bang when I hit the ocean floor. In any case, whether you captured it on Quest or on your computer, please change the video name to your name, Drive Stage 4. It could be an MP4, it could be an MOV, it could be, whatever video format is used by whatever you're using to capture the screen, and submit it by the due date. So this has been part 11. The next part will be part 12, and it will also be the beginning of stage 5, because we're done with stage 4.